What is going on, everyone? My name is Niraj, and welcome to my series Unseen, which is part of the Forgotten Generation podcast. In this series, we'll be focusing on the topic of invisible disabilities and discuss lived experiences of individuals that have an invisible disability. As a disclaimer, whilst me and my guests will be touching on personal topics, we are not experts and are only speaking from our lived experiences, and everyone will have different lived experiences. So in this episode, it's a bit different to my other episodes. I'm actually joined by two people, Aleen and Atiqa. They're both sisters, and they're going to be talking about the journey of realizing an invisible disability and how they've supported each other through that. So we'll get a lot of different perspectives from this episode from two sisters. Yeah, so hi, how are you guys? Do you want to just start by introducing yourselves, both of you, and share a bit about your relationship with each other?
So my name's Aleen.
And my name's Atiqa, so I'm Aleen's younger sister, and we always had quite a close relationship, like going to same schools, studying the same subjects, and having the same passions of music, dance, and maths. Always spending all of our time together.
So I identify as being neurodivergent, in particular, have self-diagnosed as having autism, CPTSD, and GAD. I'm currently on the waiting list for an autism diagnosis with the NHS, and I've been on the waiting list for about 2 years now. I consider my neurodivergence to be an invisible disability, and we'll be talking about the journey to realizing my invisible disabilities, in particular autism.
Thanks for that. So yeah, just to clarify for listeners in this episode, so we'll be talking about Aleen's invisible disability, autism in particular, and Attica's role in supporting her sister through it, and where she has saw the signs in the past of her sister Aleen potentially having an invisible disability and the journey to a diagnosis. So thanks for that. So do you want to talk us through the time beforehand? So what were some of the clues or patterns that, looking back now, made more sense?
I realised my neurodivergence after facing a mental health crisis, including burnout in 2020, where the demands exceeded my capacity. And then from 2020 onwards, I started my healing journey, which included seeing a psychologist and going through multiple forms of therapy and reading and understanding a lot about different mental health conditions and neurodevelopmental conditions.
Yeah, so just to add, so in the mental health crisis, now when I look back at it as an observer, I realised that there were many atypical behaviours that I couldn't make sense of at that time, especially in relation to the several meltdowns that my sister was frequently having at that time. And this affected our relationship in a very severe way at the time.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that, Attica. So just wanted to follow on from that. So was there any specific moments where you knew it was just more than just, okay, being tired, being quite stressed? And do you want to talk more about how that impacted your relationship? Because I know you touched upon that.
Yes, I think there were several moments, but I mean, perhaps I can't remember the very first of them. But like in recent years, I've noticed that there's sort of several things that have, in quite a subtle way, changed in our relationship. So, for example, earlier on, let's say before 2020, we would, like I said, we'd always do everything together. We'd go to places together. But like I've noticed that if at various times, if we've planned or if to go somewhere now, a lot of times, like Aleen, she won't be able to make it at short notice. At the beginning, I find that quite strange because this kind of behaviour quite strange. But like I came to realise that she wasn't just like tired or stressed; she was actually out of capacity for demands, and she was exhausted. So and hence she couldn't come with me to all of these events. So she was trying to keep herself safe. Almost, it wasn't just being tired. She had to not come with me to keep herself safe, avoiding burnout.
Yeah, that must be quite tough. Even afterwards, it's realizing that why she was cancelling or saying no at short notice was because of burnout, or she didn't have the social battery, or, as we say, didn't have the spoons to participate in the social activity that was coming up. That must have been at times quite frustrating for you, Attica. Is that correct?
I think more than frustrating, I find it more emotionally disturbing, I would say, because it's a part of our very close relationship, which like, so these things used to happen like without us talking about it. Like we go to it together, and you know we always do that. So it was very, I would describe it as emotionally like disturbing in a sense, but something that like I can try to understand because it's not like taking it personally in a way.
Yeah, and I think it is that balance which is quite hard because obviously it is frustrating and emotionally disturbing for you, but also knowing that it's nothing personal to do with you.
Yeah.
It's just more that Aleen, your sister, couldn't cope at the time leading up to those social events. So yeah, it's definitely a balance and one which I find it hard to sometimes strike that balance. So thanks for sharing that. And moving on and thinking about the journey to realizing you have an invisible disability, in particular autism, what was the process of seeking answers like? Like, was there moments of doubt or frustration along the way?
I think like early on, when I was younger, I remember my behaviors were quite different. Like after 2020 was when I actually started the process of seeking the answers. But before that, like I felt different, and looking back, I can see the different things that actually relate to autism. But like like seeking the answers started after 2020, when I started seeing a therapist for sleeping difficulties. And because of my severe sleeping issues, my severe sleeping issues were actually the first like overt sign that my mental health needed attention, and that's what got me to seek help. My sleep disturbances were actually like linked to undiagnosed neurodivergence because I wasn't having my needs met. That is what helped me to seek answers, because my sleep was disturbed like a lot.
And I just wanted to add in there like that. When I think about this as observer, like I actually observed this sleep difficulty from a very close perspective, especially because we used to share a room earlier on. Actually, like when I'm looking back at it now, I could see that she used to be complaining about things like the texture of the bed sheets or her clothes, or her hair, or like constantly adjusting like her bed sheets. But now, like when I think about it, she was actually quite overstimulated before her bedtime and couldn't switch off. So that was a very crucial sign that of some neurodivergence.
Yeah, and I'm sure that led to doubt and frustration because I guess when I think about it and you're struggling with sleep, you know, at the time you're like, oh yeah, it's a problem with sleep, but it's actually something else. And there is that doubt, like, what is it? Almost a frustration of, you know, I don't know what it is. I want to pinpoint what it is, but I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that was accurate at the time, that there was doubt and frustration because what the underlying issue wasn't really certain?
Yeah, but especially because I had like recurring issues with sleep like throughout my life, and it was actually like I remember the thing that triggered the sleeping issues was this one performance I had in 2015, and that kind of triggered the sleeping issues. And from then onwards, I had like severe difficulties with sleep that were like long lasting. And I think from then onwards, it was like the demands were exceeding my capacity. Whereas before, like I had sleep disturbances in intervals, but from like 2015 onwards, my sleep really got affected because I was doing like a lot, and because I didn't know that I could be autistic, so I wasn't like catering for my needs. Like I was just doing everything like everyone else was doing, and I didn't know what I had to cater for. So I was just trying to do it like everyone else, and that like because it affected my like subconscious, so it came out in my sleep, which is something that is it's like an uncontrolled area, so it's something that can be affected easily when you don't know what your needs are.
No, okay, yeah, thanks for that. And yeah, I can definitely see because you don't really know at the time what your needs actually were, so it's hard to get those needs met because you don't know what those needs are. So definitely that would lead to frustration, and not having the diagnosis which can point you in the right direction to knowing what your needs are is also very difficult. So a question for you, Attica, how did you try and support Aleen during that time where obviously she was struggling with sleep? Answers were quite uncertain as to what it actually was, what Aleen's needs actually were, and that uncertainty. Did you ever feel helpless or unsure of what to do? And a question to you, Aleen, is how important was it to have someone close to you, like your sister, like just validating and believing what you were experiencing? So do you want to start, Attica?
Yeah, so I think there were many ways that I tried to support Aline. So for example, in the sleep issues, because when we used to share a room, she's disturbed by her bed sheets. I would get up in the night and just adjust her bed sheets for her. So things like that, or making her meals, because sometimes she would get stuck on a certain thing, whether that's like a thought or an activity. And she wouldn't be able to stop doing that. So I would frequently make the meals to help. Other things like accompanying her to support services when we went to an autism support service. And I could actually remember that she was quite anxious to go, and it took us some time to get to book the first appointment with them, because she was quite anxious, and I remember she only went because I went with her. So Aline also did some DBT skills, but I did a version of DBT for family members, because earlier on, before the autism, I think we thought it was BPD, which has symptoms overlapping with autism. So Aline did some DBT for some skills for that, and I also did a DBT family skills course, and that had a lot of skills to help. So that was about emotional dysregulation. So to help family members who have emotional dysregulation.
Okay, so what does DBT stand for?
It's is it
dialectical behavior therapy.
Yeah.
It's especially for
Okay.
if you're emotionally sensitive. And on the course, there were people who were autistic who had ADHD. I thought that was really helpful, because it gave me the skills to get to the point where I could speak to a medical professional about getting an autism diagnosis without getting dysregulated. Because for me, that was my normal my whole life. So for me to realize it's not a typical behavior was very dysregulating. So I'm glad that I had those skills to help me regulate when I had to face conversations about thinking that I'm not doing something typical.
Okay, fine. And yeah, just going back to you, Aline, how important was it to have your sister kind of supporting you and also just validating your experiences?
I think it was really helpful because, for me, I've only seen my whole life from my perspective. So when someone else is telling me their perspective, it's helpful to know that if I'm experiencing something, I feel like everyone else is experiencing the same thing. But because my sister is helping me realize that we have conversations about how we might feel a bit different, and then I realized that I'm not thinking in a typical way or doing something typically. So that support from conversations really helps, because I can discuss my behaviors in a safe way.
Okay, no, I mean, yeah, definitely. I think when you have that support, it is something that can be quite game changing when it comes to that journey. And moving on, thinking about post diagnosis, how do you feel your relationship changed after, Aline, you got self-diagnosed? Well, you self-diagnosed with autism. How was there any changes in your relationship, you feel?
For me, I thought that I could communicate my needs better in without thinking that the help I need is a favor or a privilege. So in that sense, I felt like after I self-diagnosed with autism, I could communicate my needs better in the relationship and also to other people as well. For example, I find cleaning the house very difficult. I know the reasons I found it difficult are the sensory issues. I don't like touching certain materials that other people touch quite easily, and I have differences in planning and organizing it. And I just thought that was something I had to try harder on. But since the self-diagnosis and understanding my neurodivergence, I think I could communicate that better to my sister without thinking that it's something that I need to be ashamed of. Because first of all, I'm not the only one who struggles with this, and it's okay to be different and have a different skill set in terms of strengths and weaknesses. So I felt like I could communicate my needs met and not be ashamed of my differences. And when I'm asking for help, it's not like I'm asking for a favor, or it's not a privilege. It's something that it's just accessibility, and that's what my needs are, and that's okay, because everyone has different needs.
Is there anything you want to add, Attica, to that?
Yeah, I wanted to describe that from my perspective, how I think our relationship has changed after the diagnosis. And I would describe it like it's a series of downhill phases followed by periods of recovery and stability. And what I mean by that is, after the diagnosis, there'll be certain situations which come up and they evoke some phase of unmasking. So where Aleen will be like very honest about like what she can do and what she can't do in terms of her capacity at that time. But it will be a big change. So just like, for example, she was mentioning about like cleaning the house, even, for example, like throwing the trash outside. Like these were things that were not causing issues previously. But now that she's unmasking and being very honest about what she has and doesn't have capacity for, sometimes these cause like a friction in our relationship, because they're subtle, but still I would say quite big changes to how things have been in the past. So I think that causes like sometimes a downhill phase where we might have an argument or a conflict about these things. But that is also accompanied by, I think, our shared understanding of neurodiversity. So we understand that everybody is different, and so we then try to work with these changes and adapt them to a neuro-affirming lifestyle. I think that's a process that we're still going through.
Yeah, I think that last point you said, like, it's ensure everyone's needs get met, because I think when it comes to neurodiversity, it can almost sometimes be too much of a one-way focus to ensure that the needs of the neurodivergent person gets met, but it does work both ways. Like, the neurodivergent person has to also have that discussion with the other person, how they can meet the other person's needs. It's definitely a two-way process, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, Attica. So, moving on, something which both of you can chip into is, what do you wish more people understand about the journey to recognizing any invisible disability, whether that's autism or anything?
I would say that first of all, it's important to realize when a difficulty becomes a disability. Because often we face like difficult situations, but we don't know when is it the right time to ask for help. Like when is it that it's classed as a disability? So, for example, I struggle with brushing my hair, like, and I would only brush it, like, say, once a week, and like realizing that becomes a disability because I'm leaving that task for a long time, and there's some things that I can't do. So realizing when a difficulty becomes a disability is, I think, it's the first step. So you need to know when it significantly impairs your goals. I think another thing is like knowing when your difficulties become a disability because of something that's innate or something that's linked to society. So it can be both, I feel. For example, I might struggle with like my schedule because of my hyperfocus, but on another side, I might struggle with like say loud noises that can be controlled in the external environment by other people. So it can be a disability because of something that's like innate or something that's external, and both things are like equally as valid.
Anything you would like to add to that, Attica?
I don't think I've had anything to add in general. I think from the perspective of a sibling, and not only a sibling, but any family member who's close to someone who is struggling, I really believe that there has to be like a baseline trust that your sibling is genuinely struggling, and knowing that open mind to not just say that they can do better or they can work harder, because that's obviously what they can't do, because it's something that can't be changed very easily. So having that baseline. So you have to accept and believe that their struggles are real, and no matter how atypical they may seem. But I also want to say that it's quite natural to feel like that you don't know how to help them, because it is very complicated, and nobody's like a professional, and you're only a family member, so it's natural to feel like that you don't know how to help. But I would also say that try to find out more about their struggles by either asking them if they're willing to share, or by researching online about the specific condition. And one thing I found really helpful was like to keep encouraging them to seek help, because like Aleen said, that when you are first told like that something is atypical, you're not doing something in a typical way, you can like become quite defensive, like, because nobody wants to like be told that they're not normal. So like keep encouraging to seek help, even if sometimes it might seem like a long or like never-ending process. And I also wanted to point out that there is a charity called SIDS in the UK, and they specifically support siblings of disabled individuals. So that would include autism in particular. And they're very helpful, so reach out to other organisations. But ultimately, it's also crucial to prioritise your own needs and your own health, because there's a saying that like you need to put your own oxygen mask on before you help others. So like at all times, you prioritise your own health before you can help others. And I just wanted to say that remember, your sibling does love you, so they're not against you.
No, that's a really good point. So yeah, the name of the charity, is it SIDS? How do you
SIBS,
spell it?
SIBS, SIBS.
SIBS. Okay, so yeah, that's a charity specifically for siblings, just helping them support loved ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just going back to what you said earlier, and I'd like to ask a follow-up, is you said not to tell them to work harder or put more effort. I guess not necessarily in the flip side. I think we all want the best for our loved ones. We want them to work hard to achieve their goals. So where's that balance? Because you know they'll find that maybe at times a bit extra difficult, but at the same time, you do want them to work hard to achieve goals and not necessarily let their diagnosis or disability dominate everything. So where's that balance?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think I would say that like the balance is not asking them to do something in a typical way, but I think using their strengths to maybe overcome that. So like for example, like with Aleen, like I know that her strength is that she's very good, but she might say, but she's very good at organising things like in a very detailed way. So using your strengths to overcome that. So one example could be like we were doing a performance last week. We had to schedule lots of different things to do at lots of different times. So Aleen's strength, she made the schedule of when we were going to do, what thing. So I guess like what I'm saying is like that you use your individual strengths, and it's okay to ask for help. So you can use your strengths somewhere, and you can ask for help from other people with their strengths at other places, but not trying to force the other person to do things in a typical way that's going to cause them like extra distress.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to kind of finish off. And a key takeaway is encouraging them to utilize their strengths, but trying to find ways in that they can use their strengths, even if it's not in the societal expectations way or the normal way. And I think, yeah, it is just making sure that they have those opportunities to utilize their strengths because those strengths add value. But yeah, thank you for your time. If people want to get in contact with you, how can they find you?
We actually have 2 initiatives on music and dance related to neurodiversity. So we're celebrating music and dance through Hindustani arts. So like we said, we're musicians and dancers. So we have 2 Instagram pages for our initiatives. So one for dance and neurodiversity is Choreodiverse, and the one for music and neurodiversity is Sprinkle of Swara. So yeah, you can message us there if you want.
On Instagram or YouTube.
Yeah.
Nope, sounds good. But yeah, thank you again for your time. I think it was really useful getting to know both from Aleen's perspective and from Atiqa's perspective of being a sibling who's trying to support someone with an invisible disability. I feel that's a perspective that we don't often hear a lot about. So I really appreciate both of your time. And yeah, speak soon. Please support this podcast by subscribing and giving your feedback. I would love to hear your thoughts and always happy to discuss further. To get in contact, you can find me on Instagram on Niraj/travels.